Salutations, Sergeant Forno here. Welcome to What If? I take what's established in my favorite pastime, video games, take a new wrinkle or spin on it and come up with a story I feel sticks as strongly to the source material as possible. For my first episode, you see here, what if Mr. Karate did kill Jeff Bogard? This is based off the Super Nintendo ending for Art of Fighting, which I played the absolute hell out of. You know, the ending's a lot different from the original Neo Geo. They leave it up to do a to be continued in the second game. In the SNES ending, we get a lot more story. It's revealed that after booting Mr. Karate, he's unmasked as Ryo and Yuri's father, Takuma. He explains he was searching for this is quotes from the ending, he's searching for the criminal who defeated Ronit, which is a bit of a mistranslation. I found out, Ronit? Renee? She's the late wife of Takuma and mother to Ryo and Yuri. Going off SNK Wiki, she died in a car accident. Takuma suspects foul play. It's never clear that it was a direct hit, but Geese Howard, the man responsible for all the crime in Southtown, did play a part to try and keep a strong fighter like Takuma under his thumb. Back to the Super Nintendo ending, Takuma says he's fell into more of a depression after losing Ronit. He disappears, leaving a then 10-year-old Ryo to look after Yuri. Ryo? Right? I watched somebody do a video about Street Fighter, and the guy mentioned Ryu and not Ryu. It's like, oh my god, that's the 90s all over again, jeez. That's flubbing me up a little bit. But yeah, Takuma penniless after much gambling till one day Geese Howard shows to say he'll take on Takuma's debts if he helps him in his business undertakings, but he happens to overhear Geese plotting with Mr. Big, ready to take over Southtown, but Jeff Bogard, the adoptive father of Terry and Andy Bogard from Fatal Fury, stands in their way. He says, "It's all taken care of. Takuma's a Kyokugen master. He'll rid us of our problem." Takuma states that while Geese himself is a powerful fighter, he couldn't beat Jeff because it might have jeopardized his position in society. Now, in the wiki, Jeff Bogard is known for training alongside Geese the art of Hakyoku Seiken from Tung Fu Ru, the latter of whom sees that Geese is not going to use their art for good means. So he decides to name Jeff his successor and pass many more secrets of the art to him alone. Geese enraged leaves and starts to build his criminal empire over in Southtown. Geese and Big also seem to be spanking as equals, when in the wiki, it might have something to do with the whole KOF being a thing, and so maybe stuff got retconned here, and Mr. Big was the big crime boss in Southtown until Geese muscled in and took over, hence their rivalry. Back to the Super Nintendo again. While Geese builds his empire, it's Jeff that gets more, again, the position in society. I feel like Jeff in this is more politically involved in, if Takuma's claim about Geese hesitant to fight Jeff directly is anything to go by, because we know in Fatal Fury, Geese, with a bunch of goons, deals with Jeff directly. So I feel like Jeff this one might be a higher ranking in Southtown, either financially or a big name authority-wise, like maybe a police commissioner, going by what we know of Geese's role was in Art of Fighting 2. So Geese takes Yuri hostage, which forces Takuma as Mr. Karate to kill Jeff. Takuma asks if his son and daughter can ever forgive him for being absentee and also a diddly-erdler. Ryo and Yuri do so. The final shot states that Takuma handed over his position as karate master to his son, who opens a dojo with Robert to continue the teachings of Kyokugen karate. I'd imagine this decision comes down to Takuma's guilt, coupled with him looking much grayer in age for the Super Nintendo ending. So that's the backstory. Now we get to the what if and how it affects the Art of Fighting 2 and 3. 3 is not going to be affected too much, but 2, on the other hand, like I said, Takuma's guilt and old age catch up with him as he tries to explain to the police about everything, but Geese got connections. Police take him for just a criminal and lock him up because, oh shit, he just confessed to a murder. Ryo, Robert, and Yuri... Ryo? I keep doing that, sorry. Sorry. I'm just gonna go with it. They hear the news about their father's incarceration and later suicide? Yuri's devastated. She just lost both her parents. Big brother Ryo, without a word, grabs a familiar tango mask he took off of Takuma, left behind when he returned home to give Ryo his position as karate master, places it on, and runs out into the streets of Southtown. Robert yells out, but to no avail. Yuri wipes the tears from her eyes, looking over at Robert, and tells him, I'm not going to be a damsel while my brother goes off to possibly murder the ones responsible for my father's death. She suspects foul play. A Sakazaki does not suicide. She doesn't know her dad all that well due to him being absentee for so long, but she feels in her heart that Takuma did not suicide. Something foul in the streets of Southtown, and she wants to be ready to face what that something is. So in the story of Art of Fighting 1 to 2, a whole year passes. There's newspapers talking about a masked murderer prowling Southtown, targeting people of power and authority, as Geese Howard does his announcement of the King of Fighters tournament. I know the police are powerless to stop this masked murderer, says Geese. A cash reward of $1 million for the winner of my tournament, $2 million for the one who brings me the murderer dead or alive. Southtown now open to a martial arts frenzy. This is all to draw out the masked menace so Geese can deal with him or her personally. Robert and Yuri do well in the tournament. Yuri took her training a bit more seriously than normal, so her style reflects the time she trained with Robert as opposed to, I think, learning from Takuma or just on her own, including a 5-hit kick hien shippu kyaku like Robert has in later KOF games. Couple variations, nothing too different from normal Yuri. But it's down to the final four of the tournament. Robert and Yuri are off to fight their opponents. Yuri hears a voice almost pierce through her. Die, Kyokugen, bitch! Her training lets her block an oncoming ki attack, aimed at her throat with a cutting precision, almost like a knife. She sees her attacker, Eiji Kisaragi, who has it out for the Kyokugen karate. They fight and Yuri has a bit of trouble and has to use her desperation move to beat Eiji down and move on to the finals. Meanwhile, Robert runs into... Wait a minute. Ryo, is that you? Why do you have that mask on? Thank goodness I found... Oh, Jesus! Mr. Karate immediately goes into the... throwing more punches. He races towards Robert and they go back and forth while Robert tries to talk to him. Hey, you just ran off without a word. Yuri was worried about you. Listen, we both know your dad was a victim of a cover-up. Let's win this together. But to no avail, the new Mr. Karate overwhelms Robert. So, we got the finals. Sakazaki versus Sakazaki. Yuri, after seeing Robert get banged up and hospitalized by this new Mr. Karate, is fearing the worst. Robert does have enough strength to tell Yuri, I'm okay. I can't reach him, but maybe you can. Just do what you always do whenever that Dweebenheimer gets serious. Yuri thinks, Dweebenheimer? Ryo hated to be called that. Yuri thinking, I can't fight him like a rival. I'll fight him as that bratty sister who can always wind him up. So she goes for the more goofier traits that we all know Yuri for. The whole nine. She gets Ryo mad enough to not even see Yuri surprise how Shoko can actually down Ryo. It's like one of those ultimate KOs from AOF 3 that destroys clothes as well as the impact. Ryo is now maskless, bits of the tango mask on the ground, his actual face looking more listless, kind of in a way that he looks as Mr. Karate 2 and Wild Ambition as Mr. Karate. A bit more disheveled, not so clean-shaven anymore. Yuri stands over him. You stupid Dweebenheimer! We lost Mom and Dad. I don't want to lose you too, even if you are a big fat Dweebenheimer. Ryo retorts, I hate that. She just continued to yell Dweebenheimer over and over again until she collapses and sobs. This is enough to finally snap Ryo out of his sour mood, and he embraces his sister and apologizes for what he put her and Robert through. I thought as long as I had this mask, I could lure Geese out. Mr. Big and Goon show up with guns aimed at the brother-sister duo. Perfect. Now the threat of Kyokugen will be a thing of the past. You'll be reunited with Mom and Dad. One big happy family. Whoosh! A giant man spinning clotheslines his way through the goons and gives Ryo and Yuri the chance they need to help out this mysterious savior. The spinning subsides, and the giant man becomes not so giant. Ryo recognizes the man from his garb. Master Tongue! What are you doing here? I've come to kick ass. But waiting all this time to put that in. Yeah, it's Tung Fu. Not quite as old yet as he would be during Fatal Fury. Remember, the original Art of Fighting took place in the 70s before the King of Fighters kind of muddled that whole timeline, and now it's not so canon anymore. He's a friend that fought in friendly competition with Jeff Bogard and Takuma Sakazaki in the past. I feel as though Geese is partly my fault for not seeing his corrupt nature sooner, says Tong. His tower is up ahead. Yuri says, I left Robert back at the hospital, but Tong assures the moment that she left, he had sprung his own trap because he knew there'd be a hit on him. Robert's father, being the wealthy man he is, helped to pull a string or two, and now we've got evidence of Geese's wrongdoings. Go and see justice done, little Sakazaki. Ryo's still a little less than 100% from losing the fight, so instead of Ryo fighting Geese atop the tower, Yuri takes him on and wins, having Geese scurry off. But now with that added Sakazaki there, Ryo ensures he doesn't get away. Yuri talks Ryo out of killing Geese right then and there, taking revenge, almost kind of mirroring what Takuma almost did. He's understandably upset, but he hears and acknowledges that they're martial artists, not murderers. So they bring Geese down, and off to jail he and Mr. Big goes. Geese using his connections to help to exonerate him and his name from the crimes committed, and pins all the blame on Mr. Big and his more noticeable mafia connections. I mean, he's a guy whose name was Mr. Big. Come on. But the threat of Geese is gone. Southtown gets a little bit more vibrant and a little less crime-filled. Ryo, needing time to recoup and cool off, gives his title of master over to Yuri. So she stays around building a Kyokugen dojo and shrine to honor and cherish the lives of Ronnet and Takuma. The events of Art of Fighting 3 happen as normal. 6 months might be enough time to shake some of Ryo's doubt away, so he has a little more trouble dealing with Jin Fuha and Kasumi when both of them go looking for him. But he does beat them. And Yuri gets the cameo for Fatal Fury Special and not Ryo. Might as well take a drink how many times I've mispronounced Ryo's name. Is it Ryo? 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 It's like Ryu, like Japanese. I always wanted to use the term Dwarvenheimer as like means of like going by plot or whatever. I just find it funny that in SNK English I can use it and actually have it matter. I originally had this as Takuma faking his death to try and like lure Geese out in that regard, but then that would have been like Takuma lying to his kids after abandoning them again. It would have been a little bit harder to forgive him over and over again for pulling that kind of shit. So I left him DOA so Tung Fu could make an appearance and establish that universe a little bit earlier, maybe? Again, they do take place in the same, not in the same timeline, but the original Art of Fighting took place in the 70s. That's why I mentioned a much younger Tung Fu, like I mentioned, whereas the Fatal Fury tournament takes place in the 90s. So that's episode 1 of What If. I have a couple more ideas in my head as like to shake up what story around, and again with Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury existing in their own separate timelines, but still trying to keep it as much canon as possible. Maybe just take a deviation a little bit here and there. I don't know, I've been watching a lot of Masako X and I felt inspired. That's basically how this exists. But yeah, I've always had a couple of ideas in mind. I actually had one for the longest time I'm trying to piece together. That one's probably going to take me the longest. Might even be multiple videos. Anyway, with that said, take care, and thanks for listening.